After listening to the wonderful experience shared by Ms. Nance, Mr. Patrick Liu, and Mr. Darren Ho, I'm sure many of us here have some burning questions to ask them.
So let us now invite our guest speaker and Professor Pamela up on stage for the Q&A session.
And I have an agreement that she and me will answer all the easy questions, and since Darren is very intellectual, he will answer all the hard questions. And this is the best university in Singapore, right? So all the questions will be hard questions, right? So please direct them to Darren. Give him a big round of applause.
I love to sabo you.
Okay, first question. First question has a bonus.
For me,
So, yeah, quick.
first to do it.
So good afternoon, good evening, Prof, and all the guests. So I wanted to ask, all you mentioned about investing in people, and you also mentioned about trend and change. So I was wondering, have the way you invested in people changed across the years? For example, the way you invested in baby boomers as opposed to Gen X and Gen Y. Has it changed across the years? The way you engage them, the way you invested in them, has it changed over the years?
Yes, for the older ones, you walk slowly for them.
I guess the intent to invest in people will always be that eternal factor. It doesn't change. It's just the manifestation is different. I mean, look, if I'm going to tell my staff, like, hey, let's go for a barbecue and marine parade with your staff. I mean, I think they would just like yawn, right? You know, today's trend. So it depends. I think there's a different application to different people. But I mean, the thought of the intention to invest will always be there. So what does a very clever one think?
It's a good question. Because you know how sometimes you go around and you compare our parents who were extremely resilient because the times required it, and you compare ourselves now with a lot more, I wouldn't say spoiled, but a lot more pampered, definitely. Right? I mean, let's not deny the fact. Our lives are a lot easier than what it was before. It's changed as well, how you deal with people. The investment probably has gone up, actually. It's a lot harder to make people happy these days. Buying them or giving them an extra $50 in their salary is really not going to cut it. And people, because we are so educated these days, we look for so much more. We look for so much more job satisfaction, we look for so much more, all these other factors I've never even heard about. And it's tough. You know, it's tough because sometimes it's impossible for you to understand what everyone wants. The bottom line is you can't say them all. And you invest in those that, you invest a fair amount because you need to be fair if you run a company. And the rest of it, you really need to learn from the mistakes that you do.
I think some things will not change, some things will have to change. Let me suggest a few things that will not change. I think the first thing, I'm sure you've heard of saying, people don't care how much you know, as long as they know how much you know. They want to know how much you care. So at the end of the day, the first thing is, it starts with your own attitude, your own mindset. Do you really love people? Do you really care for people? And don't believe for a moment people will not know it, people will not feel it. I'm sure you've heard of this saying, you can bluff people sometimes, but you can bluff some people all the time, but you can bluff all the people all the time. No, I'm talking about some people. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So at the end of the day, it's start with yourself. And secondly is whether you want to execute them, because you can love somebody and you not think about it. So people want to know whether you go out of the way to care for them. Let me give you an example. In my company, my staff knows this. Your wedding, your birthday, I will try and come. But when there's a funeral, I will be there. Not that I wish them dead or something like that. It's just that I feel that at the moment when they really need you the most, when someone in their family, goes through a tragedy, I want to be there. And I will do everything I can to reach out to them, to talk to them, to share with them, to encourage them, to inspire them. I think what what will change is the way we share our love with people. I have two beautiful daughters, and I've learned that the way I would love myself when I was young and the way I would love them, are very, very different. The way I love them when they were young and the way I love them today when they are young adults is really very, very different. Today you need to give them space. You need to be able to connect with them digitally, for example. You need to be able to not teach them, but listen to them. And so things have really changed in the way we express the love to them.
So I'm going to follow with the question. So have you found anybody whom you find painful to love? That means by helping them, by accepting them, hurts you and the rest of the people around you.
That's a very good question that I think Darren should answer. If you're an entrepreneur, you might not arrow people.
I don't know if this will answer your question, but we had this incident in our company before where there were a couple of really, really delinquent employees, I guess, who were trying to steal equipment and sell it off. It's tough, because you know what the intention is, but knowing an intention doesn't incriminate them, because they've not done it, but you know. Okay, you just know because you see the way they behave and everything else. And true enough, when they did it, we lost nearly $8,000 worth of equipment. But what do you want to do? Initially, I got very angry and I said, you know what, let's just go to the police and get this one done with. But on hindsight, I'm thinking, is that really the kind of company, the kind of image that we want to build? So what we did was that we paid our sponsor back because our equipment is sponsored. And we told them to leave. And on top of that, we wrote pretty nice testimonials for them so they could find other jobs because, we just couldn't bear to see them go on the streets again. Like what I said, once we go down this path of semi-social enterprise, right, it's a never-ending battle because you need to live through the vision all the way. You cannot suddenly say, okay, I'm going to on the street and you sort it out yourself. Then people can turn around and say, wow, that means I can't really make a mistake in my company. And what social enterprise are you talking about? And that makes it very tough because I remember when I was writing the letter, I was signing off, I was biting my teeth, I was biting my tongue, I was telling myself, I'm not happy with you. Because I know if I had done it in other companies that work for other people, I would be incriminated, I would be jailed. Because other people are not, I'm not saying they were nice, but other people will not be as understanding. They don't need to be. And I hope that answers your question. Because that's a true experience that happened. And I'm glad that these two guys are now, they've gotten proper jobs and they've changed their ways. And they actually came and apologized to me. So I guess I hope that's a better one. But let's just hope that, I don't get any more of this nonsense happening.
I struggle with the issue all the time because I mentioned to everybody, I built this company on love. And I like to believe we're the first company in the world, first profit-making company in the world that adopted love as a core value. And when an editor of a famous business magazine interviewed me, she asked me, what is your competitive edge? What is your unique differential? I say four-letter word, L-O-V-E, love. and I asked many people all the time, how much is love? What is the return on investment of putting love for people? Especially, there are some people, Prof said, that abuse you. Professor Pamela Lim. They abuse you, they take you for a long ride. They are cancerous in some ways. And I struggle with that because it takes a lot out of me to set the person that you mentioned. You got to set the person, but it's very hard. And then, of course, I look up again and I say, how? You told me to love, now I have a little bit stronger. And I had this download of message. It's very interesting, I don't know how it worked, but it was like epiphany and says there is such a thing called tough love, 2 words. And then it was like a breakthrough for me because at the end of the day, just because I correct them, because I must connect with them first, collaborate with them, then I can connect with them. But just because I correct them doesn't mean I don't love them. Just because, when they don't do their job and they don't want to change, and I said them doesn't mean I don't love them. Sometimes when I do that, it's actually a turning point for them, it's a wake-up call for them, sometimes it's a fire alarm for them. to change their life around. And I've seen many people, after, leaving the company, actually gone on to do much better things in their life. I can tell you a story of a guy who came back and said, thank you very much. If you didn't do what you need to be, today I wouldn't be where I am today. And of course, at the end of the day, the motive, the means, and the ends must be upright, must be righteous. It cannot be, just because you want the end result, but just because the motive is right, then you do it the wrong way. So I think everything must be in alignment, and it's done on the basis of love, the basis of love.
I just recall this story when I was running the 199. At one point, we had about 180 staff because retail is so labor intensive. And then we hired this worker at the warehouse who is not as efficient, not as fast, not as friendly, but that's okay, for that sort of level of work at that point of time. And we treated this young man very well. And suddenly, one day, somebody came and said that, you know what? Every box of snack that's been delivered to the shop is always one packet missing, So we open up and count. The box says 20, but there's like 18 or 19. And this happened consistently for weeks. And then we begin to track, hey, where did this snack go? Before we put an accusation that our Japanese supplier, like under-deliver us. And then we realized this young man, he became quite hungry at a certain time of the day. And we would be hiding at the corner of the warehouse and just kind of choose. Yes, we got 300, 200 different varieties, and he would be snacking away, Then after that, then he just pays back the box, you see. And so in this process, after a couple of weeks of investigation, we got quite upset. They said, I thought that we all treated you pretty well and da-da-da and what have you. And now, so what happened was, I realized in dealing with many people, it is always an opportunity for the entrepreneurs to be better. How much do we know our staff individually? How much do we know why do they do what they do, or why did they do what they did, And so I realized that I kind of sat back and began to be more interested in this young person, understand what is he thinking, why did he behave like that, and then what, to our horror, actually, he is actually, he's in the spectrum of autism, but it's not kind of, he was already 30-something then, but I think maybe early 30s, but it was not quite recognized, or rather as a child, they didn't kind of, there's many labels or names today scientifically. So I feel really bad that, we have a colleague in our midst who has some issues that we could probably be a bit more loving, pay a bit more attention, find out a little bit more about his needs, just because he doesn't look at you in the eye, just because you don't talk as much. So I guess actually the flip side was, it taught us to be better managers, to be really concerned, why people are that way. Instead of just the work and the delivery and I've done my job and I clock out today, I thought that was quite a life lesson for me. That mistake has triggered the findings and really bettering of us and all managers. So I think behind every business, there is an opportunity, very painfully at times, but for the business owners to be a better person, a better manager, a more loving manager. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. One last question. Yes, Steve.
Thank you all for sharing that different stories. I think I myself am also a social entrepreneur, so I do feel for the theory of believing about loving people. But I do have one question. Is it very difficult to say no? Why I mean so is, we were talking about the question, when do you, or how do you not choose to then love the person further, to do a decision that's better off for a company? Yeah, when to draw the line? I think it's a very big question, especially when you're such very nice people.
I think there's a very fine line between running a social enterprise and running a charity. Just for clarification, no one said that social enterprises don't make money. They do, but you're not running a charity. And for us, we draw the line when the line of integrity is crossed. So for example, if you go out and you produce 10 videos and you're not up to scratch, I will fire you. I counsel you, I get you in touch with my producers and they teach you what to do. But if you go out there and you told me that, or you miss the coverage, or you miss the production, and you come out with some cookie reason that doesn't make sense, and you try to lie about it, I would rather you come to my face and say, you know what, I overslept, and I missed it, it rather than come to me and try to put some excuse. It's all about honesty, right? You know, we all demand this thing called honesty, but sometimes even ourselves are not honest. Let's be honest with that. But I mean, within a company, there needs to be a basic level of decorum. If you overslept or if you've not done something, just say, you know, I didn't do it. Can you give me another day to sort it out or something? I mean, that's better. At least the people who are responsible for you have a means to an end for the entire situation, rather than kicking out and giving it some nonsensical excuse and everyone knows you're lying about it. First, internally, it causes the other people to look at you very differently from now on. Secondly, it's your personal branding. I always tell the guys who I remove from my company that, you know, the damage you've done is not to Fox, because while you might not have delivered, I have 15, 20, 30 other people out there who are delivering every day. But it's your personal branding. I mean, what do you want me to write in a testimonial now that you've left? Do you want me to say that you've done a brilliant job when you haven't? I mean, even if I did write a blisteringly good report for you, your next employer who interviews you will know that this was written out of courtesy. And people are very sharp. I mean, trust me, if someone can be an employer, they usually possess a certain amount of insight, a certain amount. They know when things are written because they're trying to help someone else. So that's usually when we say no, when you cross the line of integrity. When someone tries to pull a fast one on you or try to pull something. Not on me, I don't take it personally. You pull a fast on me, that's your problem. You pull a fast one on a company, that is a cardinal sin. Because this is the company that's trying to feed you, that's trying to teach you something. I know it sounds a bit hardline, but really, it's tough love. It's really tough love, because while you might have 80-90% of people coming in and saying they want to learn something on the job and pick up some skills, the remaining, all it takes is 1 or 2 people, not even 1 or 2%, 1 or 2 people to destroy the camaraderie that exists within the company. And as business owners, you need to put your foot down and say, I can't take this nonsense. Because for your sake, I'm going to sacrifice so many other people. It just doesn't make sense. So there's always a greater good behind it.
Okay.
I want to say 3 things. Number 1 is I don't really like labels. And I don't think I like this label of whether I'm a social entrepreneur, infopreneur. The only label I like is either a lovepreneur or lifepreneur, because at the end of the day we're giving life to people through love and to make the world a better place to live in. I say this because I think all social enterprises should be profit-making enterprises, like Darren said, and all profit-making enterprises should be social enterprises, because if you run a profit-making company, you're not doing social good, you're not contributing to society, you're not making the world a better place to live in. I suspect your model is flawed. Second thing I want to say is this: if you don't learn to say no, if I don't learn to say no, I will not be able to say yes to good people and good opportunities. So I must learn to say no. And how do I say no? As I mentioned just now, I will determine, you know, the criteria is the motive, means, and ends. I'm sure you've heard of this saying, the motive and the means does not justify the ends. The ends also cannot justify the motive and the means. In other words, even if you get very good results, but you do it the wrong way, that doesn't make it altogether right. So we need to learn how to evaluate that and improve on that. And just because the means and the motives, if the means and the ends are right, but if the motive is wrong, I think you can set the company on fire at some point in time. So we need to learn how to say no to any of these 3 things if they are not right. You know, otherwise you'll not be able to say yes to greater things to come.
Whoever wants to have a reply. Okay, so I always tell my children, right, and I also tell my students, right, you can do anything, right, except 2 things. Firstly, anything you do must be lawful, right? And second thing is it must be ethical. So as long as it doesn't breach this, right, you are not being unlawful and you're not being unethical, you can do anything. So, coming to when you say no to people, right? Same thing, right? As long as it doesn't make me unlawful, it doesn't make me unethical, by showing a bit more mercy,
show people leniency, as long as I meet my target. But they tell me the number of eggs I can give, nothing more than that. Things like that I will do. But as long as it reaches what I'm supposed to comply to, like university rules and regulation, then I will do. So same thing either way, are bad and good. Same thing in the business. If you're an entrepreneur, as long as you can do anything, as long as it's lawful and ethical. What is lawful is very clear. What is ethical is your heart. Right? How you define yourself. Okay. One more time, you're hungry, right? You're right.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Nance, Mr. Patrick Lim, Mr. Darren Ho, and Professor Pamela Lim.